Well, the U.S. and French governments, among others, have warned all parties against escalation in the Middle East. For 2 hours, Israeli warplanes carried out airstrikes on southern Lebanon, the heaviest on the country since the war in Gaza began. It was not immediately clear if there were any casualties. Israel had suggested the attack was preemptive, saying that it targeted over 100 rocket launchers that it claimed were ready to be fired against it. Tensions rose sharply this week after simultaneous explosions of handheld devices in Lebanon killed at least 37 people and injured thousands. Hezbollah blaming Israel for that attack. For more, let's speak to our foreign editor, Kethevane Gorjestani. Hello to you, Kethevane. Israel's defense minister said this is a new phase of war. What is the strategy on both sides?
Well, for Israel, clearly the latest strikes are yet another sign that they are potentially preparing for something larger when it comes to their northern border with Lebanon. Those strikes taking out the arsenal, basically, of the enemy on that border is potentially a first step to that. And there's really a twofold goal for the Israelis, and they sort of go together. The stated goal is to stop the incoming Hezbollah fire from that northern border. Why do you want to stop that fire? Of course, to not have casualties. But in the long term, the stated goal, the public goal, is to get those tens of thousands of Israeli residents who were displaced by the nearly a year-long exchange of fire to return to their homes in northern Israel. That is for Israel. When it comes to Hezbollah, the speech by its leader, Hassan Nasrallah, yesterday really laid out three main points. One was the fact that he acknowledged that Hezbollah had taken a massive blow with these attacks, acknowledging that this was a problem, and the fact that they only retaliated with 17 or so strikes on Israel, that relatively to what we've seen in the past year or so, is not that much. So that is not the actual retaliation, but they vowed revenge, and they said they would respond whenever and wherever they feel like it will be the most successful. And that leaves two options. One is for Hezbollah to respond alone and to launch a barrage of rockets much bigger than what we saw yesterday. The other option is that Hezbollah is not really alone in this region, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps did say that this would have a crushing response from the resistance front, because Hezbollah, of course, very heavily linked to the Iranian regime. The Iranian ambassador to Lebanon was injured in those attacks, so you could see a response that would come from different areas, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas in Gaza, whether it's Iran, or even smaller groups in Syria or in Yemen, for example. And finally, the message by Hassan Nasrallah was that if Israel is trying to decouple what is happening at the border with Lebanon from what is happening in Gaza, they are wrong, because nothing is going to stop our rockets unless they stop what they're doing in Gaza. So they are trying to put back the onus on the Israelis, saying, if you want us to stop attacking you, you need to stop attacking our so-called brothers in Gaza.
In the United States, Israel's biggest ally internationally, what has been coming out of Washington in regards to this week's attacks?
Well, Israel, the United States is in a difficult position when it comes to what just happened, because, of course, you said it, they are the biggest ally of the Israelis. And the question on everyone's minds over the last couple of days has been how much did the Americans know, and were they involved? The message, the public message coming out of the administration is we were not involved in any way, shape, or form. But there have been a lot of calls between the two defense ministers, the Israeli, Yoav Gallant, and the American, Lloyd Austin. And the Pentagon did confirm and admit that there were 4 calls between the two, 1 on Sunday, 2 on Tuesday, that was the day of the beeper attack, and 1 more on Wednesday, the day of the walkie-talkies attack, if you will. And so there was a robust conversation, but the Americans are saying that they did not get a heads up. That's at least the public message, that they were not involved and they did not know what was coming. But there has been a lot of reporting from U.S. media outlets, from senior administration officials speaking off the record, that is saying that Obviously, they did not know the details, but they did get some sort of a heads up from the Israelis, basically saying we are going to launch some sort of an operation against Hezbollah without going into the details. And since Wednesday and Thursday, the different spokespersons from the Pentagon, the White House, and the State Departments were pounded with questions not only about whether the Americans were at least aware of what was coming, but also where they saw this fitting in their quest to not escalate. There was a question that came back over and over again. Do you guys see what has just happened? Whether it's the attacks, the beepers, and the radios, or even the latest strikes that we saw yesterday, do you see this as fitting with saying, no, we don't want an escalation? And every single time the Americans were saying, Israel has the right to defend itself, but we are looking at what is going on. But they didn't really want to get into the details of what that escalation could look like. And the only one that really sort of went a little bit to the side was the State Department saying that civilians are never a legitimate target in any type of military operation, though they didn't go into whether they considered those beepers or those radio attacks as targeting civilians. So the Americans really in an uncomfortable position here, trying to defend Israel, but at the same time taking a lot of incoming heat as to what this means for the broader region and what this means for a possible escalation.